Hafaday, and welcome to the September 15th Steering Committee meeting for Guam Green Growth. Before we start, I want to recognize President Tom Kreis from the University of Guam, who is co-leading this entire effort with the governor. I also want to thank the University of Guam for being our partner in making sure that the Guam Green Growth is based in an academic institution that has the capacity and the reach to make sure that we align the public policy with the academic research and with the university's mission to serve the community. So before we start, Dr. Kreis, I just wanted to maybe recognize you and see if you had any statements or maybe welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thanks for the comments on UOG. And I just want to shout out to Dr. Austin Shelton, Director of the Center for Island Sustainability, who's really he and his team are really the kind of the worker bees keeping things going. So delighted with all the partnerships. We've had a lot of events recently that have emphasized this, called attention to it. I think more and more people are aware of the Guam Green Growth Initiative. Delighted with the range of partners we have involved here. And then I was pleased to be able to give a presentation to I always never forget what SPREP stands for, but it's the Secretariat for the Environment Program. So I was kind of the lowest ranking person at this conference, but it's very interesting to see across the Pacific this increased attention to the issues that we care about. I was pleased to see the awareness of G3 in that whole large, high-level group. So anyway, just to say, people are noticing G3 all over the place. I think our partnerships across all these different institutions and organizations is really very positive, and delighted to see the way that Guam is able to lead our whole region in a really remarkable way. So this has lots of impact, and I'm delighted with everybody's involvement. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kreis. And of course, the movement and the work is really based on the leadership of the co-chairs that are in the meeting room that are leading the different focus areas, everything from the thriving natural resources into a very prosperous, educated workforce. There's a lot of activity and work, and I do want to appreciate all the co-chairs that and members of their committees for the great work. There are two paths I see going on concurrently. Of course, we have high-level policy and program work that is being done, but there are also tangible products and projects that are being performed at a very micro level that are able to provide our people an opportunity to be able to activate themselves and get involved with any one of the measures. And a lot of that has to do with the Conservation Corps out of G3 and the work of the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability. So at this time, I'd like to pass it on to Dr. Shelton, who is my co-chair of this steering committee.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you also, President Kreis, for your remarks this morning. I am going to share a few pictures of some of our updates that we've had since our last monthly Guam Green Growth Steering Committee meeting. So let me just pull this up here, if I can have our team spotlight my video, if you don't mind. One of the exciting announcements that we had here at the University of Guam, and I'd be happy if President Kreis would like to add to this point as well, but as one of only a few universities out of hundreds in the nation that are part of the American Association for State Colleges and Universities, the University of Guam was recognized as for an innovation award for sustainable development and sustainability leadership, thanks to all the partnerships that we have here with the Guam Green Growth Initiative. President Kreis, if you just want to defer to you for a second on this one.
Sure. Thanks, Austin. It really is great to get this award from this is the National Association for all the public colleges and universities in the country. And it's a really big deal to get this award for innovation and excellence. And so it's another way that that G3 is being recognized widely. And so I think, the idea that we in this part of the world can really lead the rest of the world and can show how things can be done, I think is just terrific on multiple levels. So just to know that this work is being recognized, and the working groups and the collective effort is getting recognition. So it's great. So thank you, Austin, and congratulations.
Thank you, President Kreis, and thank you to Governor Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, your offices, for making all of this possible, and to all of our partners here on the Zoom call today. A few other activities that we've had, notable for Guam Green Growth and our Center for Island Sustainability and Sea Grant programs. In August, we had a aquaculture showcase at Adaloop with the ocean view. It was really nice to have this moment to think about opportunities for our aquaculture industry. We had the Governor's Aquaculture Task Force members present at this event, and we were happy to fry up some of these tilapia that are from one of our very first aquaponic systems harvest at our Sea Grant program. So we hope to encourage more production of local fish in these aquaponic systems, and we have a few of these systems ready to be placed in community locations with nonprofits and at mayor's offices. So please expect to see a little bit more of this with the help of our Sea Grant Extension Associate, David Crisostomo, leading the way on these education efforts. We actually have people on campus this week receiving the training on how to build the systems on site at their locations. The other thing that we did that same week in August was to have a ground raising event. Instead of groundbreaking, we actually raised the ground at this really nice spot in Hagåtña, across the Hagåtña post office on the old Department of Administration property. The Guam legislature has entered into an MOU with us to allow us to build a garden to act as a beacon of hope for food security, and we have really great partners with the Guahan Sustainable Culture nonprofit that's leading the way with AmeriCorps to keep this garden running. So I'm seeing on social media that they're already having the first harvests of leafy greens and okra and some pepper. So it's a beautiful spot. If you're free to park on the side of the road there or next to the garden and go in and take a look at the great work that's going on. And we look forward to expanding it on this location, hopefully, and also into other villages. Lieutenant Governor mentioned that we have the Guam Green Growth Conservation Corps up and running. So we still have 12 full-time members, part of this first cohort of our Conservation Corps. They'll be working full-time until mid-November. So some of the activities that they've been working on since we last had our steering committee meeting, they did some work on invasive species. This is them mixing some bait to remove the little fire ants around the island. We went off island, actually, to Cocos Island one night to try our hand in removing some of the brown tree snakes. So we worked with the Friends of Islandano to learn how to scan the tree canopies for any of the brown tree snakes hiding. And so it's a really great activity that the volunteers keep going out there every week. So we were glad to be a part of that and to receive some of that training as the Conservation Corps. And one more invasive species that we were addressing is the chain of love, also known as Cadena de Amor, which is a really big invasive species problem around our island. It's a vine that chokes native vegetation. I don't think we'll ever be able to clear all of this off the island, but what we wanted to show is that we could have a productive harvest of this invasive species. And we pulled out the tubers, which sort of look like little sweet potatoes under the ground. And we had a workshop for the rest of the week to figure out innovative solutions on what we can do with this invasive species. So we worked with a local business to learn how to make bath bombs out of these chain of love. So you can see it there. These were really pretty, really effective. We had one of our Conservation Corps members try to boil some of the tubers and use it as a natural dye. So that is showing some promise. And even some recipes. Here is Chain of Love pesto, which turned out to be very good. Okay, and then we'll let you know if we have any other solutions coming through. We have Miracle McGoll, our circular economy coordinator, who will be putting out the educational products and sharing with the rest of our community how we can do more activities like that. Our G3 Conservation Corps weekly cleanups continue to happen on Fridays in partnership with Island Beautification Task Force, GVB, and the Mayor's Council of Guam. We've started in the north and we're still making our way down south. We went to PD in this picture this week. We have a little switch up in the schedule, but we are going to go to Umatic first and then backtrack to Agate. So this Friday, 8 a.m., we're meeting at the trailhead of Fua Bay in Humatic. So if you're heading from the north down south, it'll be on your right-hand side. You won't miss the G3 SDG van and our Conservation Corps members getting started. And here are some of the updated numbers. You can see that our impact continues to grow with now 3,904 volunteer hours leveraged. These are all on top of the Conservation Corps members' contributions. These are people from the community that are joining us on Fridays and other events. There have been nearly 3,000 trees planted, over 43,000 aluminum cans that were diverted from the landfill and given to Peggy Denny and iRecycle to get those recycled and the funds going to our local schools. And then as a preview, we are holding back just a little bit until we are able to welcome more people into this new space as COVID restrictions hopefully ease very soon. We have the Circular Economy Makerspace and Innovation Hub at the Chamorro Village, almost ready to open. Here is a design of one of the buildings where we will have CNC routers, laser cutters, 3D printers, hand tools, and other things that will allow our local entrepreneurs to have an ownership role in the emerging green economy. And that means that we are going to be taking waste products such as discarded plastics and lumber and turning them into new marketable products. So we have a lot of the equipment currently in place, and we're doing tests and prototypes of certain materials. We really hope to welcome you in. We are able to schedule some private tours until we do our full software grand opening in the coming weeks. So that's all of it, all of that from us here at the Center for Island Sustainability for our monthly updates. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'm going to pass this on to Lawrence Waddell.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you, Dr. Shelton. So before I get into the reminders, I just want to echo the sentiment stated earlier by President Christ that G3 is becoming well known in our region. Hawaii Green Growth has reached out to our G3 team on how to support FSM and the Marshall Islands in developing a green growth initiative in their island nations. So hopefully we'll see more of that to come and help our neighbors develop their own green growth initiative. So on to reminders. In 2 weeks, we'll have our second G3 biannual meeting where the G3 Steering Committee, which is comprised of the working group team leads, will give their formal updates on the progress made to achieve the G3 Action Framework goals since April 2021. And they'll give that update to the G3 chairs, which are Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and UOG President Thomas Price. Also during that meeting, we'll have an update on the Local 2030 Islands Network by GLSPA Executive Director Kate Brown and Hawaii Green Growth Local 2030 Hub Executive Director Celeste Connors. To prepare for our biannual meeting, I've been working with the team leads and other working group members to capture their updates into the G3 Action Framework working document. It sounds like a lot of progress has been made by the agencies and organizations represented in our working group. So I hope we're all looking forward to the biannual meeting in 2 weeks. Now I'll pass it over to Rita.
Thanks, Lauren. So just giving some updates on our G3 dashboard. So the G3 dashboard is getting a revamp to be more user-friendly and include more information about the categories of action goals as it relates to the indicators we currently have on the live version. We're also including data on our G3 implementation projects, as Austin has mentioned, such as the G3 Conservation Corps, our community garden, and the Commitment Badge program. We're meeting this week with the Data and Public Engagement Working Group to get feedback and ensure that the dashboard aligns with our overall communication strategy. And so this second iteration of the dashboard should be live for the G3 biannual meeting later this month. And finally, we have reached out to our POCs to start the data collection process. And so we'll be integrating and uploading the new data into our dashboard in the coming months to further tell the story of our overall G3 progress. And yeah, that's all the data and updates we have for the dashboard. Thanks, Lauren.
Okay, thank you, Rita. So that's it for the updates from the G3 coordinators. Lieutenant Governor, would you like to pass it on to the team leads?
Yeah, actually, Lauren, I was going to ask you to facilitate that.
Oh, sure, no problem. So if we go in order, let's see, I'll switch my view to gallery view so I could see everyone in the room. So the first update will be from the Healthy and Prosperous Communities team leads. We have Lola and Mel in the room.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So our group met on August 27 to discuss the updates for the biannual report. I just want to thank Lauren because I've been really busy here at the office. So Lauren has been reaching out to our team groups to help in populating the information that's needed for the results since April 2021, and then the expected results by April 2022. So we do have something, but it's not complete yet. And now that Mel is back, we'll be collaborating on finalizing the Healthy and Prosperous updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Lola. So the next update will be from the Educated, Capable, and Compassionate Island team. And we have, sorry to switch to gallery view again. I know Dr. Okada is here. And I saw Senator Regine Viscoli here as well.
So our group, the Educated, Capable, and Compassionate Island did meet, and we have finalized our update for the September 29th presentation. In addition, many of the members of our team have updated the framework to include updates for their respective areas. There are still some organizations that we need to populate with the additional information, but for the most part, many of the individuals or many of the different groups have been providing information for the framework. So we're ready to go in terms of our update. And so I won't give you any of the details of it. We'll wait till the 29th and present all of the updates. There's a lot that has been going on. And so we really appreciate all of our team members. And Senator Regine, if there's anything else you'd like to add, otherwise that will conclude our report.
No, that's pretty much it. But yes, we're looking forward to presenting all of our updates and all of the action items that our team has compiled.
Thank you. And now for the update for the Sustainable Homes, Utilities, and Transportation, we have Rebecca Respicio.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lauren. So we were able to meet on August 23rd, and just like the other committees, we are working with our various subcommittees, which we've developed, and ask them to get us the necessary updates for the September 29 meeting. So we're very happy to just say that we are rolling along, and we're excited for the 29th so that we can share all of the various goals and action items that we have progressed with over the last few months. So that's basically it. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you, Rebecca. And here to present for the Thriving Natural Resources Group, let's see, is Vanjie here still. Hi, Vanjie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fran is not able to come today, but I do want to just highlight some of the things, although I know that we'll see what all the project updates are in the next couple of weeks. I did want to say that our group has really been working in some of the major projects, and so we did have a mini summit on conservation lands, which were with Land Management, BSP, Department of Agriculture, Parks and Rec, and Chamorro Land Trust, and it really was to identify the critical conservation areas that need to be incorporated into the Forest Legacy Program. We have an interesting, innovative project that's coming up in using charcoal as a soil amender to fix soils so that the nutrient is kept in the soils. We have a big problem with erosion, and a lot of our nutrients are being washed away. That project is going to start. So what they're going to test it, and if it works, they're planning to use the bamboo down in the south as a way to control bamboo, as to make charcoal, not just to be part of the soil amendment process. Another interesting project that we're working on right now is we're partnering with the School of Engineering on addressing flooding in Jigo. The partnership is with the Municipal Planning Council of Jigo in urban areas, utilizing green infrastructure such as rain gardens, bioswales, different types of things. This is going to be something that a project taken on by the senior students of the School of Engineering. And so we're looking for funding to, after they come up with their design, to implement it. I think it'll be a good pilot and something to show the other communities that even in urbanized areas, using green infrastructure is a way to address flooding, which is at a much lower cost. We've had several meetings with our consultant to develop the habitat conservation plan. That is another innovative way of addressing endangered species on Guam, managing development. So that will take a couple of years, but we've already started working on that. Some of the things that have come up in our group there's a couple of issues that are roadblocks to us progressing in terms of regulations. One of them that came up is the Guam Ocean and Fisheries Conservation Act of 2015. So Department of Agriculture, for any regulation that they have to do, including fishing licenses or anything, updating their eco permit, has to go to this council. The council has 9 members, but nobody has been appointed to that membership. So it's difficult for them to move forward with any of their regulations. So that's something I think that Department of Agriculture is going to be working with on. Is that a necessary thing? Because it now has taken away the control of regulations from the agencies into this council. Also, fortunately, we were able to get funding for an MC coordinator that is also going to be working on gathering the data for our Thriving Natural Resources and implementing a several climate change projects, including something that we're working on for obtaining carbon credits. And so we have a lot more, but that's some of the things that we'll be highlighting during the next 2 weeks. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanjie. And I don't see Melvin Wampat Borja in the meeting room, but Mayor Cervaras or Natasha, are you able to provide an update for the Sustainable Alliances team?
I'm here.
Oh, you
sorry,
are? Okay, I didn't see you.
I accidentally logged on with Natasha's account.
Okay.
This is the team computer. We have been really focused on the UN side of the house right now in our engagement with the UN. We did submit testimony to the C24. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the regional seminar this year my family got sick right before I was going to leave, and so I had to cancel. But we just got notice from the UN that the fourth committee session is happening October 5th through the 8th. And so we're working on making arrangements to participate. Our testimony on the C24 did acknowledge and kind of connect the dots between our decolonization movement and the UN SDG approach. And so the work that we've been doing on our side for our team for G3 is integrated into our engagement with the UN. We also have reached out to Palau to participate in their upcoming ocean conference. Trina's taking the lead on that. Unfortunately, she's off island right now, so we don't have a more detailed update, but we're basically just waiting on an invitation so that we can be involved. Regional efforts are still a challenge, just given the situation around compact renegotiations. However, we're hopeful that that situation is really going to help kind of increase our engagement and activity, because, you know, obviously our neighbors and standing in solidarity with them is valuable. There is no update on our efforts on the Pacific Islands Forum versus the Micronesian Forum. We're still kind of working through that issue, but you know, a lot of it is going to be us taking the lead from our Micronesian neighbors. So that's the gist of it. We're, you know, the ongoing projects, the reports that we're producing are still in the works, and we're just continuing to chip away on those. They'll be available to the group once we have them complete.
Okay, thanks for your update, Melvin. So that concludes the updates from the team leads. Are there any questions for the team leads before we get into the presentation from Mel Mendiola? All right, so without further ado, Mel, would you like to start your presentation?
Hafa sure. Hafa good morning, everyone. Let me see here. Let me share my screen and make sure everyone can see it. Can everyone see it? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, very good. Hafa good morning, everyone. Good morning, G3. My name is Mel Mendiola, and I'm a co-chair for the Healthy and Prosperous Communities Subcommittee, alongside Lola Leon Guerrero.
But aren't you more importantly a new mom? Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
More importantly, I'm the mother of one Jenny Rose Mendiola Paris, first of her name. Anyway, so yeah, so this is, I'd really like to thank Lola for holding it down. I mean, not only in the pregnancy and the maternity leave, but in general, she keeps me on track. And so I'd like to a special shout out to my co-chair. So my presentation is called Supporting Green Guam Growth Industries. Oh, wait, Supporting Green Guam Growth Industries on Guam. That is a mouthful. I was gonna put for G3, but then, you know, I thought that was a lot of Gs. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of hone in on the work of GITA and how it supports, in particular, SDG number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. There is, of course, overlap in a number of different areas. But for the purpose of today's discussion, I thought that we could really focus on decent work and economic growth. And then, of course, there's applications across a number of other SDGs as expected. So this particular SDG's goal is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And I really liked it because I thought it sounded a lot like the mission statement of the Guam Economic Development Authority, which is to develop a sound and sustainable economy through innovative programs that preserve and promote local culture, economic opportunities, and quality of life. And so this idea of growth, sustained growth that's good for Guam, is certainly something that we're very, that the Guam Economic Development Authority and this administration is very committed to and passionate about. And I think it's as evidenced by all the leadership of the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration that's right here on this committee. So I wanted to run through, so the sustainable development, this particular SDG for decent work and economic growth comes with a number of targets and indicators, a total of 10. And so I sort of went through them and I said, you know what, let me talk about the work that we do or that we support somehow or are involved in that supports these targets. And I could go through them. And of course, if you have any questions about any particular activity that we undertake or work that we're doing, you can feel free to ask in the chat box or just give me a little shout out. Unmute yourself and shout it out, okay? So target number 1 is to sustain per capita economic growth in accordance with national circumstances and in particular at least 7% GDP per annum. Okay, to sum this up, 7% GDP growth per year in the least developed countries. Guam is not a least developed country. We're relatively developed. And if we're on par with the United States, we're developed. And so a less developed country would have a more dramatic year-on-year growth rate than a more developed country, because a more developed country, it takes a little bit more movement. You know, we're kind of like a big boat. We're not a zippy little speedboat, right? We're like a big barge trying to move towards a goal. So we move a little, if we're moving with the United States, we're moving a little slower. Usually a developed country, you're looking at a 3 or 4% growth rate. And then so what this is saying is a less developed country would be a 7%. So we're kind of, I would say let's aim for somewhere in the middle, because Guam is not exactly the United States, right? But if we were our own nation, if we were our own country, we would be developed, but not quite, you know, we wouldn't be Tokyo, we wouldn't be Japan just yet. Achieve higher levels of economic productivity through diversification. And that, every time you say diversification, my head goes ding, 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 diversification, because that is a huge goal of Governor Leon Guerrero, and she stood up the Economic Diversification Working Group in response to this. And so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But also technological upgrading and innovation, including a focus on high value added and labor intensive sectors. So this is all about quality as opposed to quantity, and about paying people fairly and higher salaries as opposed to higher living wages than getting by on, you know, on work that exploits the laborer, right? Promote development-oriented policies that support productive activities. Development-oriented policies, so policies that don't make it difficult for businesses to get ahead, but make it easy for businesses to thrive, right? Job creation, entrepreneurship, creativity. I mean, this is speaking my language, okay? This is what we do all day, every day at GITA. The next one, by 2030, devising and implementing policies to promote sustainable tourism. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that a mainstay of Guam's economy is tourism. And so how do we continue to grow this very mature industry, but how do we grow it in a way that's sustainable? It creates jobs, preserves our culture, and encourages more productivity for the people of Guam and for our island's economy. And lastly, strengthen the capacity of domestic financial institutions to encourage and expand access to banking, insurance, and financial services for all. So how do we make access to capital nice and easy for an entrepreneur or an innovator, right? And so these particular targets were the ones that stood out to me as having a real affinity, being very aligned with a lot of the activities of the Guam Economic Development Authority, as well as our colleagues in the administration, but also activities that we support at like the University of Guam, for example. So I was gonna go through, hang on one sec, my screen is a little bit frozen. Oh, whoops. Okay, here we go. So the first target, and it's hard to understand GDP. I mean, unless you're a real economic nerd like myself, how do we understand GDP? And every time I'm teaching an economics class, I say, in understanding GDP, we have to understand what the components are of GDP, where we are today and where we're gonna go. So the current GDP is made up of multiple components: consumption, investment, government expenditures, and net exports. So consumption means the consumption of the people that live in Guam. Oftentimes that is the proxy for that is BPT. So we know what people are doing. They're consuming cars or groceries or whatever through what's going on with the BPT. We know that the current state of consumption has largely been influenced by the federal stimulus that comes out, right? And so what we want to do is in the future, support a sustained consumption through diversification of our economy, more jobs, higher earning potential, et cetera. Investment. So investment under the GDP primarily means external investment into our island or business investment into our island, okay? External or internal. There's been some easing of the H-2B visa crisis. We're back at pre-ban numbers, but we're still having trouble getting laborers outside, quote unquote, outside the fence, doing non-defense aligned projects like building a house. I'm trying to get my house painted right now and install some solar, and I've been pushed back for about 4, 5, 6 months in getting that done because our contractor's just so busy. Government expenditures. So again, the current status quo is government expenditures is largely being swayed or determined by FEMA, CARES, ARP, all the federal monies coming into Guam. But it's also influenced by low interest rates. So, you know, over at GITA, we go out for a lot of bond deals. And a lot of times we talk about refinancings, just like you're refinancing a mortgage on your home. It makes a difference when you refinance a bond from a 5% interest rate bond to a 3% interest rate bond, right? For the island of Guam, our financial state has become more stable. Our tourism economy has become, our tourism market pre-pandemic was becoming more diverse. At one point in time, it was just Japanese visitors. Now we're getting Japanese visitors and Korean visitors. And looking forward, we're getting Japanese, Korean, and visitors from Taiwan. And so all of those things influence government expenditures, how the government elects to develop infrastructure, et cetera. And lastly, net exports. So Guam, if you think about it, what do we export product-wise? We don't export things like, doodads and things, but we export tourism services. So the services in Guam, the food that our visitors eat, the things that our visitors consume at DFS or Chamorro Village, all of that is classified as a net export because what I consume is qualified for as consumption, but what they consume is considered an export. Okay, so now where do we need to be with our net exports is I think we need to balance the two, not just have tourism as a service as being our major export, but also balancing it with an export of various the exports of a diverse economy, the exports of knowledge, right? In addition to products, right? So our specific pathogen-free broodstock that we're really excited about at the University of Guam. So I wanted to speak about 8.1. I think all the other sort of targets kind of speak to how we can get there, how we can achieve growth in our GDP, sustained growth in our GDP in the future to meet the targets, all of these targets in this particular sustainable development goal. So target 2 is to achieve higher levels of economic productivity through diversification, technological upgrading, and innovation, including a focus on high value and labor intensive sectors. So again, I talked about the governor set up her economic diversification working group. This is populated with folks from the Guam Chamber of Commerce, as well as the administration and other volunteers. We're working on industries. Agriculture and aquaculture, they're not always sustainable industries. I mean, there are some people that come in and really kind of, quite frankly, they ravage the earth, farmers and producers, aquaculture producers. So getting this going and growing in the right way, in a sustainable way. And so seeking funding that helps us do a lot of planning work do a lot of planning work with proactively supporting a sustainable aquaculture environment, right? Or a sustainable aquaculture industry or a sustainable agriculture future for our island. Insurance and banking. So we're looking at some of these industries that are less invasive. I mean, if you wanted to open up a captive insurance type of operation, or if you wanted to do captive insurance here in Guam, You basically go get an office at GCIC or just stay in your hotel and you can get this done without really any additional impact to the earth, right? Additive manufacturing is something that is new that we're exploring as well. And there's a number of other industries including technology, healthcare, etc. But looking at all of these, building a diverse economy, while at the same time looking at it through the lens of what's good for Guam, what's good for our environment, what's good for our people, and what preserves our culture, right? We sit on the steering committee for the EPSCoR Science and Technology group. And this group is working towards bridging research and innovation with entrepreneurship. Well, at least that's the portion that I'm working on. And so this is another all the activities that are being planned under the EPSCoR steering committee is additionally influences this technology piece, innovation, etc. Okay. I really like this. This is one of my favorite parts. Is the part that deals with micro, small, medium-sized enterprises and the work that we're doing with that. And some of the work we're doing with that includes policy work. So this particular target speaks to policy, promoting development-oriented policies that support productive activities, job creation, entrepreneurship, etc. So some of the policies that have been introduced or are being introduced are what was passed last year was the recycling qualifying certificate. I call it the recycling QC 2.0 because the original recycling QC was created in 1998 and it had a total of 0 people using it, applying for it. And it was to move large amounts of waste off of Guam. So really the only companies that would qualify are these companies that are moving like large metals. As we know, that's not really a thing, or it's becoming less of a thing, right, in the world of recycling and reusing. And so what we did was we revamped this qualifying certificate, and we said, if you're removing a significant part of waste from the waste stream, to either engage in some type of circular activity, not necessarily moving tons and tons of metals off of Guam, but maybe you're taking plastic bottles and doing something else with it. Maybe you're taking green waste and turning it into bath bombs, right? As was mentioned earlier. You can apply for this recycling QC. The recycling QC, we really like it because it actually comes with many benefits, including a BPT abatement, income tax rebate, and an abatement on all of the landing fees of all the sort of, what is it called, use taxes. So landing all your equipment and all that kind of stuff, your taxes could be abated. So this is one of the most generous tax incentives we have, and tax incentive programs we have is specific to this qualifying certificate. Other industries' qualifying certificates are not as generous as this particular one. And we believe that this says something about what we're trying to do as far as attracting businesses, attracting businesses to Guam, or encouraging how businesses grow and expand, to grow and expand in a way that thinks about removing waste from the waste stream. We got news on Friday that we received a Green Markets grant. It's $1.3 million grant, and this is to build an outdoor market in Sinahanya, as well as storm hardened agate and Manila. And we believe this is not only great for the villages. I mean, who in Sinahanya wouldn't love to have a nice little farmers market down the street, but also to improve food security, because now you don't necessarily have to drive if you live in that part of the island to get some food. You know, you could, to get access to fresh food, you could just walk, and whether it's to buy some produce from your farmers or buy some fish from your aquaculture producers, right? We're also doing a lot of work. Gita has recently sponsored a number of boot camps at the Guam Community College to increase the number of, to kind of help to retool individuals who have maybe considered leaving tourism because of the pandemic. We did recently sponsored a truck driving boot camp, in addition to a CNA boot camp, certified nursing assistants boot camp. Gita also recently provided, or we provided matching funds to CIS for their circular economy makerspace. And I think Austin took some pictures earlier. But back to policy. Some of the policy that we've helped Senator Rigel in particular to draft has to do with the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program. So making labor cheaper for farmers and aquaculture producers through tax credits. That's to sum it up, what the GRAP amendment will do. Right now, you can use the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program primarily for construction trades, for shipbuilding, and for technology. It's not being widely used in agriculture and aquaculture due to a tax nuance. And so we're trying to change that through legislation. We'd also like to exempt farmers and beekeepers from certain permitting having to do with food production. If you're harvesting honey, you shouldn't have to put up a sanitary kitchen and get yourself a range hood and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You should just be able to bottle the honey straight from the hive and take it to market. And same thing with farmers. If you're doing a value-added product, you shouldn't have to put up a whole commercial kitchen. And so we're trying to change the legislation along those lines. And exempting other cottage businesses from certain permitting. Right now, if you're trying to engage in a circular business, if you're trying to remove all the plastic bottles in Guam and turn it into something else, I believe that the EPA treats you like you're one of our metal collectors, collectors of aluminum cans. And so there needs to be some policy changes in that space as well. And so we've been working on all of these three areas, either drafting legislation and providing it to the senator, and working with the senator in introduction. Just to go back to the recycling QC, we drafted the legislation. We talked through it with Senator Rajel. He introduced the legislation. We attended the hearing. We encouraged stakeholders to attend the meeting as well. The legislation passed in December. We had an applicant in March, and this is to remove waste from hotels and from construction sites, and to remove it from the waste stream so it doesn't end up in our landfill. So we believe this is it is almost a success when they finally get their QC and engage in this activity, and we can measure the amount of waste. That is when I will truly count it as a success. All right, target 8.9, devise and implement policies to promote sustainable tourism. We recently also introduced legislation through, I think it was Jim Moylan that introduced it, and Senator Munya Barnes, who did Senator Moylan introduced it, and Senator Munya Barnes, Vice Speaker Munya Barnes, provided an amendment to it. And this is our special hotel QC. So this gives tax incentives as well, tax incentives to our local hotels. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't necessarily need to see more hotels. I just need to see hotels that are better for that are better for the earth, that don't consume as much water, right? That are better about their use of utilities, that are better about how they deal with the trash that they create. And so what we factored into the special hotel QC was if you undertake significant renovation, and that is measured by how much you're investing in revamping or renovating your hotel, you'd be considered as well for the future tax rebates and tax incentives. So that's been introduced by Senator Moylan. It's not yet been reported out of committee, but we're hoping that this is done by the end of the year. In addition, I spoke a little bit about the Guam Registered Apprenticeship Program under the Department of Labor, but the small cruise ship industry, of course, COVID left the tourism industry kind of dead in the water. No pun intended, but when we think about cruises, you're thinking about large numbers of people kind of concentrated. And one of the things that when the governor set up the Small Cruise Ship Task Force, I believe it was in 2019, the idea was a less invasive tourism experience. A small cruise ship has less than 200 passengers, okay? Most of them have like 30 to 60 or something like that. It's a higher margin tourist, so they spend more. And when they go to the ports, it doesn't require as much investment into the ports as far as major construction. A lot of times it's more of a cleanup and more of a let's figure out ways to welcome these visitors and involve them in the local culture. So you also engage local artisans and entrepreneurs. It's not this machine that needs its own infrastructure that you have to fly in from somewhere else, okay? I liken it to, if you're bringing in a major airline like United Airlines or Delta, you need a major provider of food. That's why you have an LSG instead of Mary Q, right? Whereas if you bring in a little prop plane, or if you bring in a private plane, then maybe you just need a local restaurant to handle it, like Three Squares, right? And so in the same regard, that's how we're treating we're viewing the small cruise ship industry as a less invasive type of contribution to our tourism market. And of course, we've been doing our Taking the Leap virtual conferences. And a lot of this is to encourage individuals who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs to become entrepreneurs through and think about it through the lens of how they can build a strong, healthy business. And then the second part of that, we had recently had one for exporting. So how they can build a healthy business and then promote and export their products abroad to places like Japan and Korea, where our source markets are from. And lastly, access to money. I mean, I don't know why I ended on this slide. This is like the most boring out of all of them, but this is the one that talks about money. And basically what Gita is trying to do, the pandemic environment, the fortunate consequence for us is that this federal government is trying to get more businesses supported and get more businesses off the ground. And so Congress authorized approximately $51 million to loan out to small businesses or to enter into joint ventures with small businesses through venture capital type arrangements. And so we're currently working through the arrangements for that. But what we're hoping to do is over the next, let's say 5 years, to deploy $51 million in federal capital to small businesses to get off the ground. So I mean, that's exciting, but it's less exciting to talk about it, and it's more exciting to actually do, as are all of these things. I know I went through a lot of stuff that was pretty dense information, speaking specifically to the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 8 and the work that Gita is trying to do in support of that. I welcome any questions at this time, and for any other questions, you can email me or give me a call.
Thank you so much, Mel.
You can stop your screen share, right? Oh, we got it already. All right, you know what? I just wanted to add on to that. Although Mel talked a lot about the spending going on from the government, but there also is going to be additional spending we're tracking, of course, depending on what happens with the Congress and this infrastructure bill, where there's going to be some investment into infrastructure, including in broadband. And one of the areas that Mel talked about is telecommunications. I know that the University of Guam has been one of the leaders in this area, including advocating for the what was our village called?
Oh, Silicon Village?
Silicon Village.
Yeah.
Anyway, all I was going to say is that one of the additional things we're doing is we'll utilize the Gita structure with broadband. I met with the head of their telecom committee just to basically convene all the telecom companies to determine and really learn where on the island there's a need for the public investment in expanding broadband capacity, including speed. So there's other things there. There's things with roads, there's things with ports, but there's going to be a significant movement if an infrastructure package does get passed, which I'm optimistic it would, for there to be other layers. So I think that the process that Gita has embarked on is an excellent area in our sustainable partnerships side, where we do have the government and the private sector, along with components from the education sector, working together to really try and identify project priorities. Any questions for Mel on her presentation from any member in the room? Or comments? Well, Mel, looks like you summed it up, or nobody wants to mess with the new mom. So congratulations again.
I know I talk a lot and I speak quickly sometimes, especially when it kind of delve into a subject matter like this. So please feel free to get in touch anytime.
All right. So with that being said, that does end our items.
Oh, Lieutenant Governor.
Oh, Lauren, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I forgot to hand it over to Ricky to give his update from the data and public engagement team. So I hope we have time for that right now.
Absolutely.
Oh, thanks. I didn't want to ruin the flow of the presentation and the meeting, but we just have really quick update, and it's just a Thanks to Kyle and the G3 Science Communications team for just really promoting and updating the social media pages. Our data and public engagement team has a meeting tomorrow. We've been having some issues with getting everyone together at one time. So we do have something scheduled for tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I just want to say thanks to Mel and congratulations to my former partner at Gita on her new baby and a great presentation. But I don't want to keep everyone. Thanks, Lauren, for fitting me in, and thanks LT and everyone else.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ricky, and thanks for your contributions. All right, is there any other topic or matter that anybody would like to raise? If not, please reserve September 29th from 10 to 12 on your calendar. Please block that out. For the viewing public, we will get a very specific and significant updates from all of our focus area chairs, kind of tracking the progress that has been made since our last meeting in April. So at this time, I do want to thank, of course, President Kreis and the team at the University of Guam, all of our co-chairs and leads and key members in all of the different focus areas. And of course, the G3 Conservation Corps and the other staff of G3 and the Center for Island Sustainability for continuing to be so innovative. I'm looking forward to the time soon when our pandemic restrictions will ease, numbers get better, and we'll have an excellent meetup at the G3 Makerspace at the Chamorro Village. So thank you very much. Have a good day and please stay safe.